Every generation, an athlete comes along who rewrites the record books, who redefines competition, and who defines the Olympic ideal. An athlete who pushes the limits of the human body and turns rivals into also-rans. An athlete whose influence transcends his chosen sport, who bears the weight of a sporting world and delivers in golden fashion, leaving us with memories never to be forgotten.
That word gets thrown around a lot. You know, you're a legend, you're a legend. There aren't many truly global legends. And in our sport of track and field, Michael Johnson is definitely one of them.
The Olympic Games remain the pinnacle of the sporting world when the greatest athletes are immortalised. The 1996 Atlanta Games were such an occasion, when one man was transformed from athlete to icon. Michael Johnson, the winner of multiple Olympic and World Championship golds, the fastest man in the world.
When I was growing up in Dallas, it was just natural for all of the kids in my neighborhood where I grew up to just go out and play all different sports. I was exposed to lots of different things, and that's how I was able to find what I really truly loved, which was sprinting, and also what I was good at.
Born in 1967, Michael Dwayne Johnson was the youngest of 5 children. He grew up in the American football heartland of Dallas, Texas. At Skyline High School, Johnson excelled academically and showed promise as an athlete, but he was by no means the best in the country, or even the state.
We only had one scholarship to give for a sprinter, a quarter miler, and I had a young man committed to us that was not only the best in Texas, but ended up being the best in the United States and won the World Juniors. And the last minute, I didn't get him. And so my backup plan was Michael, and it was a cold call up to Skyline High School, and but it was the best call I ever made.
He had a great deal of experience when I first went to Baylor University, where he was coaching, and he's a big reason why I went there. Just an incredible coach, and has a desire to not just instruct athletes on what to do, but to teach athletes what to do.
It was the start of a sporting relationship on which the sporting gods smiled, master and pupil with complete mutual faith.
I have a philosophy that's proven effective that I developed myself as an athlete along with Clyde in terms of how to train, but also how to prepare and how to approach competition.
It didn't matter how cold it was, it didn't matter how rainy it was. You know, at the end of the day, Mike was always there. He was willing to do what the coach asked. And I think that is the difference between those who succeed and those who fail.
When you've got a youngster that has good physical ability, and you have them that are focused, and they're not going to mess themselves up, you got to do a pretty lousy job not to produce something pretty good.
I only had one coach throughout, college and 11 years as a professional, and it's a great partnership. I learned so much from him, and I think he learned a lot from me, and we just worked together.
Hart's training methods and Johnson's dedication began to bear fruit. The young athlete was raising the bar, and the athletics fraternity began to take note.
We were rivals in college. We were both running for our respective universities, me at the University of Houston, Michael Johnson at Baylor University. We ran in the final of the Southwest Conference meet, and I beat Michael Johnson. It was the very first time that I ran under 20 seconds was against Michael Johnson. But it says what kind of athlete that Michael Johnson was. He was that type of athlete that when he stepped on the track, because he prepared himself, he was going to bring out the best in you.
Johnson's talent was clear, but a series of injuries hampered his collegiate career. Coach Hart changed his regime, and Johnson's star began to rise. And not just in the USA.
First time I heard of Michael properly was Edinburgh, cold, wet. I was running the 400 metres, and this guy called Michael Johnson ran the 200 metres on a wet, windy day in Edinburgh and broke 20 seconds.
Johnson showed his power off the bend to defeat a world-class field in a scorching time and less than ideal conditions.
I was just off of the world record, but more importantly than that was the field of athletes that I beat. It was the defending Olympic champion, defending world champion, and defending #1 ranked 200-meter runner were all in that field. British #1, John Regis was in that field, Commonwealth Games champion. So it was an incredible field, and all of that, plus the fact that it was Edinburgh. it was cold. It was Scotland weather.
And it was like, who is this guy? And what you immediately think is, okay, he's great, we won't hear of him again. Because you get guys that come along from America, sprinters, run well. There's so many of them, they don't back it up the next year. Well, Michael then backed it up.
I proved to myself at that point that I was as good as I thought I was. I thought I had the potential to be the best in the world, and that was confirmation to me.
From that day on, he got into more meets, better lanes, and once he got it, lane 4 was his.
In 1991, Johnson headed to his first World Championships in Japan, but there was a certain degree of apprehension.
It was my first World Championships, and so it was a little bit difficult, in terms of just how do I prepare for this championship and how do I go into it knowing that I'm the favorite and not wanting to be sure that I, wasn't overconfident.
He blew away a field including Frankie Fredericks, winning with the biggest margin of victory since Jesse Owens in 1936. It was the first of 8 World Championship goals. But if the single-mindedness of track and field's new star was seen as arrogance by some, fellow athletes saw the bigger picture.
My first impression of Michael, I never liked him at all. As a matter of fact, I want to use the word like I despised the fellow.
Michael was the guy who, he was like the Terminator in the back there.
Pre-race, he was in what we call in the zone. That's just self-hypnotizing. You don't really go under, but you can get yourself in the zone, and the great ones do that.
He was very focused. He never played. If coach wanted us to do a certain workout, he would do it precisely as he was instructed to do.
He's really a great guy that had come from a good family, but that was the atmosphere and that was the mindset he had to get into, to be the absolute best.
To be the best, you must win Olympic gold. But prior to the Barcelona Games in 1992, Johnson was struck down with food poisoning.
Everybody's human, and no matter who you are, if you get food poisoning a few days before the Olympics, you're in trouble.
As his rival Frankie Fredericks stormed to victory in the semi-final, Johnson faded from contention. And so did his Olympic dreams.
Affected my ability to go in there and compete at the level that I had been competing at, and so it was a huge disappointment, but that's life.
I was in Barcelona. That's the only time he ever lost in a championship. Every other championship that he went to, Worlds or Olympics, he won.
He did get a gold on the 4x4 relay. Begrudgingly, he got it. He wanted that individual.
Michael learned from that if he was to truly sustain performance to the level he wanted to, then he had to negate any problem that could possibly happen. And my experience of him was this incredibly focused, disciplined professional athlete. And I would have thought Barcelona, to get food poisoning in Barcelona, he would have thought that was a mistake. I could have avoided that. So it never happened again. But I think it probably made him realise it was the sport was never easy. Things can happen and nothing's taken for granted. And I think from that moment onwards, he didn't put a foot wrong. I think from 93 onwards, that was it. And then he moved to 400, so he did the 2. He doubled up, which was annoying.
Michael kind of shocked me coming in saying that he wanted to go for both the 200 and 400, and you can imagine, you know, I'm wanting him to get a gold individual medal. Now you go for two, that changes things up. You got 8 races in 8 days. You don't want to lose one gold trying for two.
I think one of the best decisions that was made was for him to do the 200-400 combination because he was the best at both of those events during his time.
It was an unprecedented decision, but there was a method behind the madness.
When he was born, he was given certain fast twitch fibers that were remarkable, but I think it was just a good stroke that he got to a program that got him stronger. Speed and strength are synonymous. He had a little shorter stride, a little quicker, and a little bit more upright, but it wasn't a detrimental thing.
His natural speed was so great, that means he could work on his strength, and all of a sudden his speed endurance was brilliant as well. And you know, everyone used to always say about his running style, oh, he runs really weird, he's too upright. But I think he actually proved, in fact, that was the most efficient way of running. And how can you criticise someone who can run 43.18, you know? Awesome.
In 1995, Johnson proved his superiority at the World Championships in Gothenburg. In first, the 400 metres. Johnson clocked a time of 43.39, the second fastest of all time, beating Butch Reynolds and Greg Horton to the gold medal, and the victory set up the 200-400 double attempt. Which he became the first man to complete, clocking a time of 19.79 in the 200 metres. Underlining his utter dominance, Johnson defeated Frankie Fredericks and Jeff Williams. He set championship records in both finals, and then collected another gold in the 4x400 relay, his 9th race in as many days. And at the US Olympic trials the following year, he finally broke the world 200-metre record.
And so, you know, I knew from the time that I broke the world record at the Olympic trials, the US trials, that when I came back for the games, you know, that I'd take a lot more off of it.
Johnson and Namibia's Frankie Fredericks had enjoyed an epic rivalry throughout college and their professional careers. Just 2 weeks before the Atlanta Games, Fredericks defeated Johnson in Oslo. The pressure on Johnson had only increased, especially as he was going for not 1, but 2 Olympic sprint golds.
When Michael said that he was going to double up in Atlanta, a lot of people were saying, oh, you know, he can't do that, it's not possible. A lot of people subsequently raised their eyebrows at it.
There was more surprise when the IOC announced they would alter the Olympic schedule to accommodate Johnson's double attempt. But the man himself was relishing the challenge ahead.
Obviously, it's a tremendous sense of pride and a great opportunity. I mean, you know, not too many athletes will get an opportunity to participate in an Olympics in their own country.
A couple of days before he started, we go back to Atlanta, and he stayed in a hotel, away from the hustle, because there'd be no way he could stay out of the limelight, autographs and whatever.
The Americans love their sprints. He was doing the double, which hadn't been done before. It was a big story. He was a big star.
Pressure everywhere. So we came back and trained. He had a couple of absolutely unbelievable workouts here. We shut it down and said, you're ready.
Johnson faced 8 races in 8 days. The 4th was the 400-metre final.
That was my first individual Olympic gold medal. I felt like it was something that had been missing from my career. And there had always been this fear. I would finish my career And everybody said, oh, he was one of the greatest sprinters ever, one of the best athletes, best 400-meter runner, best 200-meter runner ever in the sport, but never won an Olympic gold medal. And I was always afraid of that happening.
But Johnson had little to fear, and on his way to victory, set a new Olympic record.
I didn't get close to Michael. Came second to him in the Olympics, which was great. But you know, he was in a different league.
There's a famous story here in the States of one of our greatest ever baseball players named Babe Ruth. And Babe, famous story of telling little Johnny that he's going to point his back and knock a home run because Johnny's in the hospital dying. Whether that really happened, he did. Sports writers claim as he's warming up, kind of does this with his bat, lo and behold, he hits a home run. So it's legendary. Well, that's a great story. But you think what Michael Johnson did. Michael Johnson told the whole world. Babe Ruth told one kid. Michael tells the whole world, if this schedule's changed, I'll win these two events. And then he has to go off and say, I'll do something special.
Part one of the double was complete. Johnson was halfway to legend. But there was a snag. The 200-meter final was less than 2 hours after the semi-final, and the athletes were ordered to wait in the stadium.
And I said, there's no way that's a rule. That's a convenience. We're not doing it. And they said, you got to do it. So I just told Michael, I said, Michael, when that semi's over and they start leading you through, you just head straight. I'll be there at the door. And I had a cab, weren't waiting. And we went, they turned one way and we turned another, and we were out of the stadium in that cab, and we went right over to the warm-up track. And I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna do the exact warm-up that we've always done, except we're gonna cut it in half.
At that point, I mean, training was not the issue. It was just execution of the race, and you have to keep pushing the boundaries to do something that has never been done before. You've got to push it.
It was dark over there. I think there was one other soul over there. I can't remember who it was, as we were running, and we just went through it. And I kept watching my watch, and I had the cab just wait.
And at the same time as you're doing those things to try to run the fastest, race that's ever been run at that distance, you also have to understand, keep in mind that there's 7 other people in the race, so you got to win the race as well.
And so I knew exactly how much time we had, and we jumped in it and whipped over, and he got into that room before they called him out.
The world was watching. The sense of occasion was unforgettable.
It was electrifying. I've heard of these things, reading books about there's magic, maybe a rock concert or a presidential inauguration where you feel the electricity. I felt electricity in that stadium when they brought those out. Of course, Michael being an American and all the anticipation. Are we going to see history?
I remember being in Atlanta and walking out there with Michael Johnson and thinking, wow, these people are going to be really disappointed if I beat him tonight.
I was in the best shape of my life at that point, and so it was. I was extremely fortunate to have that opportunity.
With the pressure of an expectant nation on his shoulders, Johnson smashed his own world record in front of a frenzied Atlanta crowd.
And it was like 1,000 fireflies. The state was the cameras were going off. He gets such a fast start that he literally almost falls the third step out.
Up until Michael passed me at 100 meters and that 200 meters, I thought I was winning because I couldn't see him, I was on the outside. But we know how that ended.
Well, lo and behold, I'm watching the screen, I'm watching him, and it's this, and I'm just thrilled that he won. And everybody said, "Look at the time, look." And I look, and it still doesn't dawn on me. I think 1932. And I'm waiting for him to change it. And I said, he's done it.
It was Michael's Olympics, in the same way that, you could point to Phelps and Bolt for Beijing. This was Michael's Olympics.
I was just extremely fortunate that the timing was right, that when the Olympics were held in 1996, in Atlanta, it was at the middle of my career and at the pinnacle of my career.
Michael skipped the 19.5 and 19.4, went down to 19.3 on his 8th race, which was still, to me, remarkable. So, yeah, to me, that's a much, much better story than the Babe of predicting something and delivering. I don't know anybody's ever done that.
I remember watching Michael. That's my only memory really of the Olympics, was just the world record in his gold shoes.
That was serious. And I think most people thought that would stay for a long time. And then Usain Bolt took it. The 400-meter record of 43.18, I think will stay for a lot longer.
That time was set on a balmy night in Seville, Spain, at the 1999 World Championships. Age 31, Michael Johnson finally broke Butch Reynolds' 11-year-old world record. His margin of victory showed just how far ahead of his rivals Johnson was. And with this victory, he'd achieved all there was to achieve.
When I broke the world record in the 400 in 1999, I was the first person to become world champion and Olympic gold medalist at 200 and 400. But once I broke the 400, that was the last thing for me. No one had ever repeated as Olympic champion at 400, so that was my next goal. And I decided then, once I do that, then I'll move on and I'll retire.
Well, the Sydney Games, people don't realize that wasn't a given. It was a given as far as I'm concerned, Michael, but when you're getting at Michael's age and you've got to do something never been done, there's a reason it never had been done before.
At our U.S. Olympic trials, after I'd already made the team in the 400 and trying to make the team in the 200, I got injured. So I didn't have any preparation races between the trials and the games. I just had to basically rehab and try to maintain my conditioning and go into 2000, in the best situation. And it was really at that time, the only way I think I won that race was just off of the experience, because I wasn't in the best shape of my life at that point by no stretch.
One of the memorable moments was when Mike actually turned back and realized that I actually finished third and came back to give me a hug. And I think it was based on the fact that I was the second person in the camp in the history that won an individual medal. So he was happy for me, and he was also happy for Coach Hart.
Everyone wants to go out on the top. You go out with an Olympic gold medal, and thank you very much.
Johnson picked up yet another gold in the 4x400 metre relay. But when his teammates failed drugs tests, he chose to return what he saw was a tainted gold.
I put the effort in to be a 5-time Olympic gold medalist, and we won. I won 5 gold medals, and we would have won that medal, because like I said, we have so many people we could have had on that team that were clean.
Michael's longevity is going to be very difficult for anybody ever to do what he did. Going from 1990 all the way to 2000, 10 years of being the man.
If you're going to rank us all, there's a few athletes who sit in a space that is a very, very special space. And to access that space, you have to have won multiple gold medals, you have to have set world records, and more importantly than anything else, you have to have had a long, sustainable professional career. And there aren't a lot of people you can put up there.
The consistency that he had, it shows that when you work hard, that anybody can do what they want to do. And he set his heart to certain things, saying that he was going to break the world records, and he did it.
Michael was just, I smile when I talk about him, just an amazing athlete. Real privilege to be around at the same time as him.
Once I got the chance to know him, I really wanted to take a page out of his book, because when it comes to dedication and focus and commitment, and he is the highest you can ever get, and Michael Johnson is definitely epitome of all of that.
For most people, though, Michael Johnson, with his golden shoes, will forever be linked with that magical night in Atlanta when he rewrote the record books and entered Olympic immortality.